Welcome to the Safe Schools Against Violence in Education and/or S.A.V.E. This is a 2-hour training for New York State Education Department for teachers and teaching candidates. We're going to be talking about the troubling statistics in New York State schools and schools across the nation. 8% of high school students report of being in a physical fight on school property at least once during the previous year. 1 in 5 students have reported being bullying on school property, and 9% of high school students had not gone to school because they felt it was unsafe at their school or on their way to school and to from school. These are statistics that overlap with the Dignity for All Students Act, but indeed are part of the S.A.V.E. training. School responsibility. As per your other training seminars, school administrators, teachers assistants, paraprofessionals, school staff are to keep schools safe and violent free. When student feels scared or anxious, take them seriously. And the Maslow hierarchy of needs exemplifies that safety is a basic foundation and need, and it must be fulfilled in order to for the needs of the students that we serve to be met. So this is the hierarchy that was mentioned in the previous slide. Note that self-fulfillment needs are on the top. Psychological needs such as self-esteem and belongingness or a sense of belonging, as well as the basic needs, which is safety, security, and of course the physiological needs such as food, water, shelter, warmth, etc. So some risk factors. Students who risk or have experienced or one or more general risk factors are more prone to emotional outbursts and aggression. Note that no one factor by itself leads to developmental of youth violence. And finally, the presence of the risk of does not always mean that the young person will experience violence. Individual and personal risk factors, impulsiveness, weak connection to the school, gang exposure, lack of supervision, depression, anxiety, and chronic stress are part of the many interpersonal and individual risk factors, as well as community risk factors such as substance abuse, lack of supervision, exposure to violence in home or community, parental substance abuse, and parental use of harsh or inconsistent discipline. Some protective factors that can be addressed and need to be addressed is there's a growing body of evidence that suggests that protective factors can reduce and buffer the likelihood of youth violence. Protective factors offset the harm done by exposure to risk factors. Protective factors are the most impactful if and when they are continuous and long-standing relationships where the relative is more influential than a short-term relationship with a positive teacher. And finally, protective factors and support children by allowing them to utilize empathy and develop their conscious. They also allow children to believe that they can take steps to manage what happens to them. Other protective factors include and are not limited to children who do not have protective factors or high alerts much of the time. Uh, the younger child, the less they can self-regulate or draw attention or inherit the protective factors. They simply don't have the development to express them. Protective factors in the environment, adequate housing, safety, clothes, and food are frequently taken for granted and often don't think students and scholars don't often think to ask for access to them. Protective factors examples include distress tolerance, academic success, economic opportunities, safe and stable housing, household financial security, connectedness to family, and adults outside the family. Adverse childhood experiences, the ACEs. Many of you, we address this in the discussion board in part of your asynchronous as well as synchronous trainings. ACEs includes but are not limited to physical abuse, verbal abuse, domestic violence, neglect, community violence, and parental substance abuse. Adverse childhood experience study. The CDC wanted to study why certain illnesses such as depression and substance abuse and lung cancer were more prevalent in specific populations. So they conducted the ACE study, and the sample questions you were privy to in the discussion board as they are listed here. So the adverse childhood experience study found that across 23 states, 62% reported yes to the ACE questions, which indicates a meaningful emotional deficiency, and 25% reported 3 or more yes answers to the ACE question, demonstrating the trauma clusters. Adverse childhood experience study also indicates that using this data to inform local decision-making, training substance abuse and mental health professionals recognize and prevent ACEs early on, and developing programs to ease the transmission of intergenerational traumas.